Hello everyone, and welcome to Import-Export Your Port. I'm Yaremi Farinas, the Public Information Officer here at the Port of Palm Beach. Today we're going to give you an overview of what goes on here at the port, which spans 165 acres in the city of Riviera Beach. We'll talk about how port-related businesses support local and state economies. We'll give you insight on maintenance dredging of the Lake Worth Inlet, and we'll talk about how the port plans to move more cargo by rail. Welcome to Import-Export Your Port. I'm Yaremi Farinas. We are here at the Port of Palm Beach, joined by Port Executive Director Manuel Mera. Manny, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you, and welcome all.
Manny, I know you've been managing the port for 13 years now, so you know the port like the back of your hand. Tell us, what are the port's primary functions and its core mission?
Sure. The primary function is for us to make enough money, since we are self-sustaining. We don't have a power government that we can go to and ask for money. We make what we spend. So again, the number one concern is make sure that at the end of the day, we made enough money to keep the lights on, at least for the entire year. But more importantly is the economic impact. We have a core of businesses here at the port that produces money and revenue for the local areas, not only for the county, but also for the local cities, such as Riviera Beach, West Palm Beach, and also further north.
And while the Port of Palm Beach is a landlord port, not an operational port, meaning the tenants are the ones that employ a majority of the people working at the port, tell us, how many jobs are we looking at here at the Port of Palm Beach?
Sure. That is a number that gets to be used by a lot of people in many different ways, but how we do it here in the Port of Palm Beach is we can directly attach a person to a particular zip code, and we know all of our workers, everyone that comes into the Port of Palm Beach, where they actually live. And we're looking at approximately slightly over 3,000 direct jobs. That simply means that if this port were to go away, there are 3,000 empty jobs. 3,000 individuals, including me, looking for a new job.
And tell us a little bit about the type of cargo that moves through the Port of Palm Beach.
Sure. Our number one cargo is it is classified as containerized cargo. Those are those containers that you see on the road, the 40-footers or the 20-footers. In previous years, we've had as much as 290,000 TEUs, the smaller ones. And they primarily service the Caribbean. That's the destination. As you said earlier, import-export. We also import cargo, not only from the Caribbean, but also throughout the world. Yachts is the first one that comes into mind. Brand new yachts that are manufactured in Europe that are brought into the Port of Palm Beach either for a local distribution or an owner that sometimes sits out there just waiting for his yacht to be disembarked and on the water so that they can take possession of it and go wherever the final destination may be. We also are involved in transportation of sugar. As you know, the Palm Beach County has a lot of real thriving agricultural sector back out west, and they manufacture, or they grow sugar. And that sugar is raw, it's not processed. It's brought to the port by truck, and from here it gets transported up to either New York, Baltimore, or Savannah. That is where they get refined. If you've ever seen that Domino brand, well, that's where it comes from. That's the white sugar. At that point, it's refined, and I'm sure you have it in your house as I have it in mine. The number one product that we have here at the Port of Palm Beach is food. we feed the food, we feed the Caribbean. Most of these islands basically have to resort on us because they don't have a Walmart or any big ticket item type of food distributors. So they heavily rely on the Port of Palm Beach. Why? Because of our location. There's a rule of thumb. If you look directly behind you or in front of you from a port, that's usually your trading partner. And for us, it's right on the money.
And in just a moment, we'll take a look at another service here at the Port of Palm Beach that's fueling South Florida businesses. That and more from Port Executive Director Manny Almeida in just a moment. Welcome back to Import Export Your Port. We're at the Port of Palm Beach, where in addition to cargo movement, the port also attracts mega yacht customers. Some of these customers can spend over $1 million a month while docked at the Port of Palm Beach. Manny, tell us, how do these customers contribute to the local economy?
Sure. First of all, I'm very excited about this sector within the maritime industry. These are the mega yachts, really luxury, huge yacht that we have been able to attract here to the port. And what happens is these yachts, they have a crew, starting from the chef, not the cook, from the chef all the way down to the maintenance folks. Those folks can either are anxious to hit land so they can go to the nearby stores, get whatever it is that they lack or they desire at that point. But they also, the owners of the yachts, will purchase items for the yachts. Example, flowers. We see an awful amount of flowers coming in here just before the yacht is about to disembark or actually depart from the port. It's an aesthetic. It makes the yacht look even prettier, believe it or not. Food is another one. We are the source of food for these big yachts. An awful amount of food, and you can name them. The largest three from Cisco to CVI, as well as Gordon Foods. They'll back into the yacht, and here we go with all the types of frozen foods and liquids and all kinds of items that they will need in these voyages. They could take up to 40 or 50 days before they hit land again. So, like I said before, it is an extremely exciting type of business for the Port of Palm Beach. So much that we have spent a lot of money in providing what we call shore power. What they do is the yachts will come in, turn off the engines, and then they can plug into our source, our electricity, and therefore will not be polluting or will not have any negative consequences towards the environment. So again, something we look forward to. I think we're just beginning to see the expansion, and come back 2 years from now, we'll talk about it again.
And Manny, I know in an effort to continue to attract these mega yacht customers, the port recently made some upgrades to the mega yacht berth. Let's take a look. Mega yachts visiting the Port of Palm Beach can now switch off their engines and connect to shore power while docked at the port.
Shore power is the project to bring electric power from one of our main substations into the berths so that it can be used by the ships at berth.
The $1 million project was funded 50-50 by a Florida Department of Transportation grant.
So you can see we have 3 power pedestals. You can see one next to us. There's 2 more down farther, and those each can bring 400 amps of 480 volt power to the dock for use by ships.
The shore power hookups allow port tenant Berth 1 Palm Beach to optimize berth space.
Berth 1 is pretty busy today. You can see the cables running along the dock to the sailboat that's being worked on here. We're also plugged into the yacht Quantum of Solace and running shore power to that vessel. And then We're also pulling power off the second pedestal to supply just power for tools and things that are working on the racing sailing boat over here.
The new service not only benefits Berth 1 Palm Beach's customers, but it also benefits port neighbors. Shore power eliminates the noise of generators and cuts engine emissions.
We know that from EPA studies, when shore power is used versus onboard generators that are diesel powered, we can save up to or reduce emissions up to 98% by using our power company power rather than generators or engines on the dock. So it's good for the environment, it's good for Port of Palm Beach, and it's good for the vessels that call here.
Welcome back to Import Export Your Port. We are at the Port of Palm Beach, where vessels with the drafts up to 33 feet can navigate through the Lake Worth Inlet and dock at one of the 17 berths here at the Port of Palm Beach. Joining me now is Port Engineer Ron Coddington.
My pleasure to be here today with you in front of this beautiful harbor.
Ron, we're going to talk about maintenance dredging, and the easiest question of the day is, what is dredging?
Well, dredging is a term that is used for excavation underwater. And there's several kinds of dredging. There's mechanical dredging, which uses backhoes and clamshells, and there's hydraulic dredging that uses the typical large dredges with a pipeline that pumps the fill to some spoil site that you've seen both operate out here in this harbor.
And how often does maintenance dredging occur here in the Lake Worth Inlet?
In the Lake Worth Inlet, we typically dredge for maintenance purposes once a year. And in the last 10 years, we average about $3.5 million worth of maintenance dredging every year.
And that money comes from the Army Corps of Engineers?
U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and it's funded through the WRDA Act, the Water Resource Development Act.
And tell us a little bit about what that process is like. It's not something that happens overnight and a dredge just shows up. There's a lot of communication that has to happen between the port and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in order to get a dredge here.
Yes, of course, there's the governmental issues of making sure that money is budgeted, and that's handled outside of our port. But locally, the first thing that happens is we get word from the pilots that tell us that they're either feeling a bump of sand as a ship comes in, or they're noticing on their depth sounders that we're having compromised depth. Usually in the outer channel is where we see it first.
Which in just a little bit, we're going to see how that impacts our port tenants.
We certainly can talk about that, yes.
But coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at how dredging benefits our neighboring communities. We'll see you on the other side of this break. Welcome back to Import Export Your Port. We're at the Port of Palm Beach talking about maintenance dredging of the Lake Worth Inlet. While the sight of a dredge might not excite you, under the surface, dredging has many positive impacts.
The Corps of Engineers in their fiscal year 2021 budget has allocated $6,320,000 for dredging of Palm Beach Harbor. That's great news, because not only are we going to get our channel taken care of, which by the time they dredge will have shoaling, but we're going to attack the settling basin. In the last 5 to 7 years, our funding has been in the neighborhood of $2.5 to $3 million. So this is more than double that, and it's been at least that long since we've had enough funding to make an appreciable difference in the sand in the settling basins. This time definitely will include a pipeline to the beach and beach restoration down probably in excess of 3,000 feet south of the inlet in the town of Palm Beach. The settling basin has somewhere in the neighborhood of 250,000 cubic yards of sand that is constantly falling into our inlet every time there's a north wind and a north swell. So by emptying the settling basin, it should let the Corps of Engineers get to their goal of possibly dredging only every other year, or at least just one scheduled dredge without draft restrictions and emergency dredging, which causes disruption to our tenants in the port. There's two significant impacts. One is to the large ships that Tropical has, the Hope-class ships. When we have draft restrictions, the Hope-class ships, which during that time of year we're sailing once every week, they leave approximately $500,000 worth of cargo on the docks in Halifax that they can't load because of draft restrictions. Now that's not $500,000 impact to the shipper, but it is $500,000 worth of cargo that doesn't pass through our port, doesn't come into the local economy, and isn't available for the Bahamas and the Caribbean nations that we feed. In addition to that, the molasses ship, the molasses is not a profitable item. The molasses ship really needs to sail at full draft. If we were not able to sail the molasses ship at full draft and they decided not to ship molasses, that could potentially impact the harvest in the Everglades agricultural area. And we all know how important the harvest of the Everglades for sugar, how important that is to the local economy, especially in our western regions. I think it's important for everyone to understand that we're constantly working closely with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to make sure our port is always open at full draft, which benefits the economy and has the least impact to the residents. And we do appreciate the residents' understanding when we have to dredge, but we're going to try to do it less often.
We are here with Port Engineer Ron Coddington. Ron, something we often don't talk about is how dredging impacts tourism and recreational uses. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the depth of this port, besides being maintained for our shipping traffic, also serves the entire recreational boating industry by providing a nice safe harbor. When things are rough to the north and south of us in the other inlets, this is the harbor they can go through because the waves are not felt as much in this deeper harbor. It also supports our scuba and skin diving industry, besides our fishing industry, and then contributes to all the water sports up and down the beaches.
And one thing I want to talk about is Peanut Island, because we know a lot of visitors and a lot of locals enjoy Peanut Island, whether it's swimming, paddle boarding, or boating. They go there and they love it there, but they may not know that Peanut Island was actually created during the construction of our inlet.
That's right. In the early 1900s, in the vicinity of around 1915, when the deepest excavation of the harbor took place, the spoil site, or the area where the fill was being pumped to, was Peanut Island. So Peanut Island used to be water, and it was created by the dredging of the entrance channel. Today, we still contribute to Peanut Island with the Florida Inland Navigation District use of the north half, and that's where they put dredge material from dredging of the Intercoastal Waterway. In the southwest corner, we contribute to the island with the maintenance dredging of our inner harbor and the basins. And then, of course, you have the recreational area that's been developed by Palm Beach County, including all the great boating impacts, diving along the rock piles and the piers that have been created here. And of course, we have that jewel over there of the 4 acres where the Kennedy bunker, the Kennedy boathouse, and the 1935 U.S. Coast Guard base is situated. And eventually, Palm Beach County is taking that over, and we'll develop that for greater recreational activities.
Did you know the Port of Palm Beach is one of only 2 ports in Florida with on-dock rail? The port's rail crew uses a port-owned locomotive to haul rail cars with cargo from the nearby Florida East Coast Railway interchange to the Port of Palm Beach. Joining me now is Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Carl Baker. Carl, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know you've been here a very long time, 30 years, right?
Yes.
So you know all about the port. Tell us what sets the port aside from other ports when it comes to on-dock rail.
Well, for starters, other than the Port of Jacksonville, we are the only port in Florida that has on-dock rail where you can unload heavy lift cargo right off the ship, right onto a rail car, and then haul it off to its final destination.
And tell us, have we ever supported some local projects that involve using rail in heavy equipment?
Yeah, there's been a number of projects. One of the big ones was we had a 450-ton transformer for Florida Power and Light, was unloaded, put down on a deep well rail car and hauled out of here to the job site, which happened to be just west of the Port of Miami, where they do not have that capability to do it. We've had a number of generators, gas turbines, a lot of stuff for Florida Power and Light.
And the use of the on-dock rail is very different now from what it was, let's say 70, 80 years ago?
Right, 70, 80 years ago, what we were doing is we were loading boxcars directly onto ships that were going off to Cuba. Back in the 50s, we were the largest trading partner with Cuba of any port in the world.
Now, the port was recently awarded a $13.2 million federal grant to expand its intermodal rail facility. Take a look at how this project will boost containerized cargo and create local jobs.
Not every port in South Florida has the capability that we have, which is the railroad that comes into the port so that it can be transferred onto ships. Currently, our system allows the handling capacity of about 44,000 containers. With this project, it will double its capacity, making our port even more efficient when it comes to rail movements. Once this project is complete, we expect to see significant boost in exports and operational efficiencies. The project will create at least 105 direct jobs. Furthermore, expanding on rail infrastructure gives us the opportunity to be better environmental stewards by eliminating 29,000 truck trips per year off of I-95. It will in turn lessen congestion for motorists.
That was a brief overview of the port's infrastructure development project. Carl, you're going to tell us a little bit about what that project entails.
Well, before we even got the grant, we spent well over a year having meetings and working on the design before we even started writing the grant. And obviously all that hard work paid off. We were one of only 16 organizations in the entire United States that got a port infrastructure development grant, and we were the only port in Florida that received one. The match that we have to provide, this gives us a total of $26 million to rebuild the infrastructure in the port, a lot of which dates back to the mid-1950s. What we're going to do with this grant is we are going to do a lot of rearranging of the port, which will make it more efficient and will allow operations to flow a lot smoother. Right now, the port has the highest percentage of containers exported that come in off of rail cars of any port in the state of Florida. This new project is effectively going to double the amount of rail cars that we can move each year with containers. And because we're doing this, it's going to put 30 to 40,000 containers that would otherwise be on trucks going up and down I-95. It's going to put them on rail cars where you're not going to have to deal with them. This obviously, it's good for the environment, it's good for traffic flow, it's good for everybody. And of course, with all these additional containers comes additional jobs. The PIDP grant estimates that we will be able to hire at least 100 additional full-time direct jobs to handle the additional flow of containers that are moving through the port.
And this PIDP project goes hand in hand with the port's strategic master plan that's currently in the works?
Yes, the port is getting ready to start on our 2022 master plan. The purpose of a master plan is to look out in the future, in this case maybe 10 years, and decide where we want to take the port. And then we have to decide what are we going to do to get to that goal. This is something that we're required to do by state statute every 10 years, so now's the time to do it. And now it's time for the consultant to come in to validate our thoughts, and then they're going to go out and they're going to do their economic studies, they're going to do their marketing studies, they're going to interview the tenants, they're going to interview officials from the local governments. We're going to have community outreach sessions where the people in the communities can come together and express their views. This whole project is obviously going to take a while. We're estimating that it will take a minimum of 1 year to do everything before we can take it to final approval. At that point, because the port comes under the Palm Beach County Comprehensive Plan, we will take it to the Palm Beach County Board of Commissioners where they will approve the plan. At that point, it will then be transmitted up to Tallahassee where it will be incorporated into the Florida Seaport Mission Plan. One last thing, for a lot of us here, this is considered a legacy project. We're not going to be here 10 years from now when we do the next one. And we want the people who do the next master plan to look back on this and go, yes, those guys knew what they were doing and they did it right.
And it's pretty amazing that this involves a community, it involves municipalities, it involves elected officials. Everyone takes a part in this important project that's going to pave the way for the next 10 years for the port.
Absolutely. There's a lot of involvement, there's a lot of buy-in on this. This is not just something that we dream up in the conference room and publish.
Well, Carl, thank you so much for being here with us. I know myself you are a very busy man, so I appreciate you being here.
Again, thank you for having me here today. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us. We hope you've learned something new about the Port of Palm Beach. Join us next time on Import Export Your Port.